Hey everybody, how's it going? It is Fabrizio Aiello. Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking? The long-awaited sequel to What is Fabrizio Drinking? Hey General Piggy, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in on this lovely Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to be inking this Shadow over Innsmouth drawing today. I'm doing it on blue line, so I might be a little more experimental than I usually would, which is kind of fun. So actually, let me get some background music on here. Yeah, I wanted to do this Lovecraft drawing just to kind of mix it up a little bit. You know, you draw the same thing over and over, and after a while you get a little blind to it. So doing these kind of one-off illustrations it's been pretty fun. If there's anything wonky with my audio or whatever, just give me a heads up. I always have a new setup every time I start. It's impossible to keep the same setup unless I have a studio or something. So I'm going to start with just laying in some big black shapes. Again, I'm going to keep it pretty loose. I'm going to be this is going to be brush and pen and ink, which again is a little different than I normally do. So this guy is really fun, and I want to make sure I don't spend all of my time drawing this fish guy. Yeah, depending on how this goes, I really might just print out another blue line, take another stab at it, use a different kind of style. That's really the whole point of these. So if something's not working, it's okay to bail on these. Because normally what I would do is all of these black areas, I would normally be doing those with a brush, but I would be keeping it grayscale. So that's why just trying a little different, see what kind of things I can pull into Horace H. Hoover. Not mid-comic or mid-issue, but down the road. There is such a thing as being too loose, for sure. So I'm going to try to thread that needle. As long as I can bring it back into to some semblance of the intent of the illustration, and things don't go too off the rails. This water at the bottom is probably gonna be the hardest, because you gotta stay loose, but you can't go too crazy because it does still have to kind of look like water. So this part of Shadow over Innsmouth, this is where essentially the whole town is kind of after him, chasing him around. So I wanted to have some fishy people in the background. They're weird anatomy. But you can't go too detailed because they're tiny little illustrations. Blue Teddy, how's it going? Revan Saber, how's it going? Oh, just a heads up. All of the artwork from the auction was sent. Sorry about the delay, but got slammed with work and couldn't get to the post office, but everything is sent out. So hopefully we'll get that soon, and the post office hasn't tried to destroy it out of spite. Oops. Just really kind of jumping around the whole image, putting in some blacks. Just so I don't focus too much on one area. Whenever I do illustrations of very, very popular things like this, you can take two approaches. One is, okay, let me Google to see what other people have done and try and not do that, or maybe you get inspiration from it. For me, I've always tried to just check out the source material again. It has been a while since I read this, but man, I've read this so many times that I didn't feel like I needed to reread it just for the illustration. Hey Blake, how's it going? Brian suddenly, oh, how's it going? I don't know where everybody is, but it is very fallish in Pittsburgh today, that's for sure. So, like this guy, he's like the head priest of this cult. And it says he wears this big tiara, but it doesn't really go into his clothes. I think it mentions he wears dark robes or something like that. So I really wanted to just kind of go with that a little more, other than just dark robes, because that would be not the most fun thing to draw or look at, honestly. So I put put jewelry around the robes as well, since jewelry is a big part of the story. The weird tiara and things that they make, or at least have, in Innsmouth. Yeah, today was a perfectly fall day. I do think it's funny in Shadow over Innsmouth, though, they refer to it as a tiara, which is the most non-threatening description of something that you wear on your head made by fish people. I feel like they probably should have called it something else, but I can't, because I think it's impossible to think of a scary or creepy tiara. At least I don't know if that's just me though. So I'll be doing these just spot and blacks a little bit, and then I'll do a pen and ink, and then I'll kind of go back in with a brush and just kind of go back and forth. Again, I'm keeping it really loose for this one, just to play around. No fear of messing up blue line, of course. Outside of wasting time, but this guy's face is really gonna sell it or not. So if I can't be very loose with his face, I gotta keep it pretty solid. The last stream, I think it was the last stream, when I was finishing up the drawing for this, I could not get his hand. So I had to leave that until later, until I could finally get that right. And for some reason my brush keeps hitting my microphone. Okay. This architecture is pretty fun to do whenever the architecture is old and decrepit and you don't have to worry too much about keeping everything straight. It's always fun. Now I did start with pretty accurate, like clean perspective, and then I kind of layered some leaning siding here and there when I was drawing, but that'll get quite a bit more obvious whenever I ink. Late to the party. What is Fabrizio inking? I am inking Shadow over Innsmouth, which, if you're not familiar, it's an H.P. Lovecraft story. And I did the pencils on a stream or two ago, and just kind of switching things up a little bit to kind of practice drawing different stuff, while in between Horace H. Hoover pages and whatnot. But yeah, I could not think of a name for my channel. So finally, I decided on What is Fabrizio Inking, because I had mentioned that many, many years ago, as sort of a joke, as soon as Apple iTunes came out, I wanted to test it out, and I did this fake 30-second podcast called What is Fabrizio Drinking, where I just said what I was drinking. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to spend 5 years trying to figure out what my channel's going to be called. So, plus it is pretty descriptive. There's some mystery because you don't know what I'm going to be inking necessarily. This will definitely take 2 inking sessions, maybe even 3, depending. So we'll see. Even if I keep it pretty loose in the beginning, towards the end, just start tightening everything up and making sure it's actually clean. Then that's where the time comes in. I don't know why I just spent time on his hand there, just because it was fun. Alrighty. So I haven't touched this building over here at all. I'm having a hard time getting things on camera. So this whole side of the building is basically white, which is not cool. But sometimes I like to wait in the inking stage to decide, if I'm just going to put a giant shadow coming across it, like it's coming from another building or something like that. As a non-traditional book reader, are there any Lovecraft comic anyone would recommend? I'm trying to think of Lovecraft comics. I mean, there are adaptations for sure out there. There was a series, what was the name of it? It was interesting. They were even going to adapt it into a movie. Basically, the premise is Lovecraft. Whenever he dreamed, whatever he dreamed kind of came to life. So he was the one sort of creating these monsters that would appear. I'm blanking on the name of it. I have to look that up. If anybody in chat has any recommendations. Definitely, I mean, Alan Moore's Necronomicon, heavily influenced, inspired by all Lovecraft stuff. It's pretty dark, though, even for Alan Moore, I have to admit. So I would be prepared on that one. Really dark. That's the first one that comes to mind. Wait a minute, is it called Providence? As soon as I get on stream, I lose my brain. It's the Alan Moore Lovecraft stuff. I could have swore it was called Necronomicon, but now I'm thinking it's called Providence or something like that. Yeah, I'll probably be using a pen for a while, or I'm sorry, a brush for a while. I thought it would be interesting to do, essentially, take a drawing, like I'm doing right now, do blue lines, and then do inking in different styles. I was looking at Mark Texiera the other day. His old Wolverine and Sabretooth stuff was so fun, so extreme, but man, was that great. I would love to do some inks like that. It's a printed off blue line. Yeah, again, I wanted to kind of play around with different styles. So this is actually how I do the Horace H. Hoover stuff. So I never ink on the originals, mainly because the paper that I like to draw on is this Strathmore 200, but it's kind of bad paper to ink on. And then the paper I love to ink on are these Eon boards, which are just incredible to ink on. So I'm like, well, I'm getting the best of both worlds. You know, if I can draw on the paper that I really like to draw on, and then ink on the stuff that really fits my style. So that's what I've done for all of Horace H. Hoover. I accidentally started drawing on these boards here, these Eon boards, for a drawing, and I could not figure out what the problem was. Like, it was smearing everywhere, and my pencils weren't just reacting the same way, and I'm like, I can't do this. And I realized, yeah, I'm drawing on my inking paper, basically. It's really smooth, so everything smears, and it's hard to erase, and yeah, it's got its own issues. The other thing too, which is pretty cool, to me at least. I like the idea that I have the original pencils and the original inks, which is kind of fun. Jordan Wheeler, you're a lefty. Man, so far a lot of artists I see are lefties. I'm more of a right-handed artist. Yeah, it's funny. I never think about it until other people kind of notice that, but I've noticed there's a fair amount of lefty artists. I might even do washes on this, but I don't know. We'll see how it works. That might be pushing it for this paper. I don't know. Captain Goodnight. What makes a paper good or bad for inking? Essentially the tooth. You want as smooth as you can for brush work. Also, you want to, it has to be thick enough to be able to take the ink, because if you use a pen, I know it sounds strange, but basically the ink sits on top of the paper, and I can probably show it later on. And it just kind of sits on there, and it slowly sort of sinks into the page. But brush, it immediately gets soaked into it, and if the paper if the paper's not thick enough, if it won't take like the wet media well enough, then it could buckle, even with a little bit of ink to it. But for me, the biggest thing was the essentially the smoothness and how the brush kind of glides on the page, which is most hot pressed papers like that, as opposed to cold press. But the Eon boards are just particularly nice. They smell great. Alright, so I've really worked a lot on that guy, so I'm gonna jump over to this guy a bit, if I can fit it. Yeah, so if you use a nib in a pen, it's much easier to smear it, because again it just sits on the page. Seems like forever, so you have to really jump around to make sure that it's dry. Whereas brush, I mean, obviously you have to wait a little bit, but it doesn't seem like it takes nearly the time. This guy's almost kind of funny looking. But, I mean, they are fish people. I would say fish people are mostly funny looking until you get them in a big group. And then, once you get a group of funny looking fish people, they become a little more threatening. No, Revan Saber, that's awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate people checking out the auction and bidding and even just hanging out. It just makes it a lot of fun. The thing I love about drawing fish people is they don't have any chins, or they have double chins, which is so fun to draw. It's just one of the funnest things to draw. Maybe not the funnest thing to look at, but sometimes those two aren't mutually exclusive. Jordan, any comic creators you inspire from? Also, are you making comics for companies or on your own? Oh, man. So as far as comic creators, this is always tough because I'm always sort of obsessed with different people at different times. So this is probably not an exhaustive list, but just in general, if I sort of think back to my favorite artist, John Buscema is probably my favorite artist, I would have to say. Him or Bernie Wrightson. But then, I'll get in this mode of looking at everything by David Mazzucchelli or Brian Boland. So, man, there's a lot of them, so it's really hard to pick. I am the sole creator of Horse H. Hoover, but it's being published by Alterna. But essentially, I write it, I come up with stories, everything, and then Alterna publishes it. So I definitely have complete autonomy regarding what I'm doing, for good or ill, in Horace H. Hoover. As far as some other comic book creators, as far as writers, they're the usuals, I would say. Alan Moore, Frank Miller. I always think of runs in particular that I loved growing up. So like Ann Nocenti's Daredevil. Year One by Frank Miller is probably one of the greatest comics ever. I know people don't like Killing Joke, but I love Killing Joke. As far as more contemporary, not that this is that contemporary, but I always liked The Goon. I thought The Goon was pretty good. So Eric Powell's stuff, his art, I loved more than the stories. Definitely the art. The art was really, really something. Brian, Merman from He-Man is the most well-composed fish person. I forgot about Merman until you just said that. Man, I love He-Man. Those character designs were crazy and awesome. Man, this piece is even better in person. The packaging is great. Thank you for the prints. Thank you. I'm so glad it made it there okay. It is honestly nerve-wracking sending art in the mail. It's nerve-wracking, so I'm so glad you got it and you like it. Thanks again. It's awesome. It's awesome knowing that that you got it too. That you've been watching the Horace H. Hoover stuff for a while now and coming in the auction. So I really appreciate that. And I gave you a new print, one of my favorite new ones. So hopefully you dig that. Was Claremont an influence? Oh yeah. Yeah, the funny thing about Claremont is I feel like even when I go back, I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about a comic in particular, and I go back, oh yeah, I really loved this issue of, whatever it is. I'm like, oh, that was Claremont as well. So he's an influence, and sometimes he's an unknown influence. So I'm thinking of an issue that I love of some comic, and I go back, I'm like, oh, that was Claremont too, and that was Claremont. So definitely an influence for sure. Like the Alpha Flight stuff, and even the later stuff. When I think of all like my favorite runs of stuff, his name always pops up. Yeah. I couldn't get into the Goon. The covers are great though. Yeah. The art is really something though, but the stories are they're not bad. They're okay. It's just not my. I guess it's just not my style. Um, but he did some art. He might have even done some issues for like a reboot of The Spirit or something. But those covers were so good. Like it's just he really has like the structure of the face, and just really like solid form down. I had to admit though, as far as comics, as soon as Brian Michael Bendis sort of came onto the scene for Marvel, I started to not like that. That's for me when I started to kind of look elsewhere. It was just a style of storytelling I wasn't really into. Even though I read a lot of them, but it just I slowly lost interest in a lot of that stuff. I liked Brubaker's Criminal. He had another one too. That stuff was good because I love noir, so that was pretty cool. The art was great in that. Actually, I did like a lot of Brian K. Vaughan stuff too. So, um, Why the Last Man at the time was good. If I reread it, I don't know if I would think the same. I don't know, but I definitely dug that. Pride of Baghdad by him. Yeah, a lot of those older books, I'm curious if I would think of them the same way. Because whenever I go back and reread, like Avengers, like there was this run with Dr. Druid. It was such a great run. But anyway, when I go back and reread it, I love it the same. It doesn't change. And it's not nostalgia. Uh, that was weird. One second. My Wi-Fi really just cut out there for a second. What else? So there's Hellboy. That's the big one. I liked Hellboy. I think I think the art changed for sure. For me, it became a little too stylized, so I kind of fell off. I fell off the Hellboy wagon. But it was definitely, I loved the atmosphere. All right, so get him going. I got him going far enough that I can kind of work him, and I also really want to lay out these clouds a little bit because they're going to be tough. I think I might take like a Kleenex and kind of do a dry brush thing for the sky. I don't want it to be completely black, but I don't want to have to essentially hatch the entire sky, because that's just not going to work. So I'm assuming this is either late at night with a very bright moon, or just got dark. I think in the story, I actually can't remember. I can't remember how late at night it is whenever somebody tries to break into his hotel room and he makes a run for it. There's nothing to say we're an evil cult than essentially taking shelter in an old church. Definitely need to work on this. Yeah, I'm gonna rough in this hotel. Churches were often the most well-built structures of the time, so it makes sense. Yeah. I'm kind of obsessed with like New England architecture, and the churches are just, they're sort of simplistic as far as the design, but just really beautiful. And even when you find one that is sort of like old and kind of worse for wear, I love it so much. Something about them. There are definitely houses that I see. I live in Pittsburgh. I see houses today where I'm just amazed that they're still standing. And that's what I imagine the atmosphere is in every H.P. Lovecraft story. Just these really old houses that are just sagging and everything's crooked. All the siding is just barely hanging on. I mean, admittedly, it's a lot more fun to draw that, because if it was all brick, then yeah, you can have crumbling brick, but you're not going to have like this sagging wall necessarily, or as easy, I should say. But 100-year-old like wood house that's not taken care of definitely can look pretty bad. I gave this one guy a beard. Oh, you can't see it. I'm gonna give this one fish guy a beard here. As far as fish people go, he's probably the most well respected for his facial hair, because other fish people can't grow hair. One thing you should never ever do is draw the entire piece of siding. Should at least be gaps or variation. If not, it looks, I mean, it would look like a brand new house, but even that, you want to leave some gaps in there. So you can see I'm following the blue line, but not a lot. Just in general, really. This is one of the benefits of being the penciler as well. I can ignore as much as I want. I too would be impressed by a fish person with hair, so that's understandable. Right? That makes sense to me. I am really going loose with this guy here, but like I said, It's really just about experimenting, so at the end of this I'll see what worked and what didn't work and go from there. Alright, I need to work on our main character, even though he is the tiniest. Well, not the tiniest, but one of the smallest pieces of the drawing. Technically, he's also part fish. It just doesn't know it yet. So, it would be nice if I gave a hint of fishiness, but I have no idea how to do that. I'm not really a fan of his face. I might have to white that out and try again. I'm gonna have to see about that. That's gonna be quite the realization moment when it happens. Not every day someone learns their part fish. I know he is not happy whenever that does happen. I don't know if it makes it better knowing that he's like part alien fish. I mean, because it's not just literal fish. He's part, alien fish guy. I will definitely be giving this away. So, whatever stream that I finish it on, I'll give it to somebody in chat. I'm hoping one other time, but I would say max 2 other streams and I'll be able to finish it. Unless everybody is sick of fish people illustrations. And their house is already filled with fish people illustrations. Alrighty. I mean, lots of girls dream of being a mermaid, so maybe you can think of it like that. Yeah, that is true. I mean, I wonder if Lovecraft got a lot of pushback whenever he comes out with the story, and you know, at the end it's like, and he's part fish, dun dun dun, and people, the first thing they think of is like, so he's like a mermaid? Merman? And it's like, no, it's like a scarier fish, you know? Just, it's like a scarier one. Because we've all been there. Coming up on an hour here, so I'll be quitting in a few minutes. Yeah, looks like we're at an hour. It's a good place to stop. We'll take a look at it. Alrighty, so got some church stuff done, which looks pretty good. Just roughed in some siding. Got the guys in the back, at least some of them. There's a bunch of them behind there. Got the high priestess of the cult with his tiara and robes. Got this guy. Our main guy's kind of roughed in too. Same with this guy. So made a fair amount of progress in an hour. Yeah, alright, well I might be streaming tomorrow as well, but I'll continue with this probably over the next week, and like I said, I'll give it away whenever I finish it, whatever stream that is. But thanks everybody for popping in, I appreciate it. Hope everybody has a good weekend. Thanks a lot. Bye.